Good afternoon, everyone. You know, I got to thinking about our series of morning devotions on the small catechism, and something that a lot of people aren't exceedingly familiar with is Martin Luther's large catechism. Of course, all of us in the Lutheran Church go through the small catechism when we're, anywhere from 10 to 14 years old. But Luther really did intend for families to make use of the large catechism, especially the head of the family, the father. But really, it's something that's useful for all of us to go through. And so, during these days, I think that I'm just going to read directly through the sections of the large catechism that we're going through. And it'll take a few minutes to get through it, and maybe you won't keep up with everything that's said. But it's something that you can just take a few minutes and listen to and think about to edify your day. So we'll begin with Luther's section on the First Commandment. You shall have no other gods. What this means. You shall have me alone as your God. What is the meaning of this, and how is it to be understood? What does it mean to have a God? Or what is God? Answer: a God means that from which we are to expect all good, and in which we are to take refuge in all distress. So, to have a God is nothing other than trusting and believing him with the heart. I have often said that the confidence and faith of the heart alone make both God and an idol. If your faith and trust is right, then your God is also true. On the other hand, if your trust is false and wrong, then you do not have the true God. For these two belong together, faith and God. Hebrews 11, verse 6. Now I say that whatever you set your heart on and put your trust in is truly your God. The purpose of this commandment is to require true faith and trust of the heart, which settles upon the only true God and clings to him alone. It is like saying, "See to it that you let me alone be your God and never seek another." In other words, whatever you lack of good things, expect it from me. Look to me for it. And whenever you suffer misfortune and distress, crawl and cling to me. Yes, I will give you enough and help you out of every need. Only do not let your heart cleave or rest on any other. This point I must unfold more clearly. It may be understood and seen through ordinary counterexamples. Many a person thinks that he has God and everything in abundance when he has money and possessions. He trusts in them and boasts about them with such firmness and assurance as to care for no one. Such a person has a God by the name of Mammon, meaning money and possessions, on which he sets all his heart. This is the most common idol on earth. He who has money and possessions feels secure, and is joyful and undismayed as though he were sitting in the midst of paradise. On the other hand, he who has no money doubts and is despondent, as though he knew of no God. For very few people can be found who are of good cheer, and who neither mourn nor complain if they lack mammon. This care and desire for money sticks and clings to our nature right up to the grave. So, too, whoever trusts and boasts that he has great skill, prudence, power, favor, friendship, and honor also has a God, but it is not the true and only God. This truth reappears when you notice how arrogant, secure, and proud people are because of such possessions, and how despondent they are when the possessions no longer exist or are withdrawn. Therefore, I repeat that the chief explanation of this point is that to have a God is to have something in which the heart entirely trusts. Besides, consider our blindness, which we have been practicing and doing under the papacy up until now. If anyone had a toothache, he fasted and honored Saint Apollonia. If he was afraid of fire, he chose St. Lawrence as his helper. If he dreaded the bubonic plague, he made a vow to St. Sebastian or Rocchio. There were a countless number of such abominations where everyone chose his own saint, worshipped him, and called to him for help in distress. Here belong such people as sorcerers and magicians, whose idolatry is most great. They make a deal with the devil, in order that he may give them plenty of money, or help them in love affairs, preserve their cattle, restore to them lost possessions, and so forth. For all such people place their heart and trust elsewhere than in the true God. They look to him for nothing good, nor do they seek good from him. So you can easily understand what and how much this commandment requires. A person's entire heart and all his confidence must be placed in God alone and in no one else. For to have God, you can easily see, is not to take hold of him with our hands, or to put him in a bag like money, or to lock him in a chest like silver vessels. Instead, to have him means that the heart takes hold of him and clings to him. To cling to him with the heart is nothing else than to trust in him entirely. For this reason, God wishes to turn us away from everything else that exists outside of him, and to draw us to himself, for he is the only eternal good. It is as though he would say, "Whatever you have previously sought from the saints, or whatever things you have trusted in money or anything else, expect it all from me. Think of me as the one who will help you and pour out upon you richly all good things." See, here you have the meaning of the true honor and worship of God, which pleases God, and which he commands under penalty of eternal wrath. The heart knows no comfort or confidence than in him. It must not allow itself to be torn from him, but for him it must risk and disregard everything upon earth. On the other hand, you can easily see and sense how the world practices only false worship and idolatry. For no people have ever been so corrupt that they did not begin and continue some divine worship. Everyone has set up as his special God whatever he looked to for blessings, help, and comfort. For example, the heathen who put their trust in power and dominion elevated Jupiter as the supreme god. Others, who were bent on riches, happiness, or pleasure, and a life of ease, elevated Hercules, Mercury, Venus, or other gods. Pregnant women elevated Diana or Lucina, and so on. So everyone made his god that interest to which his heart was inclined. So even in the mind of the heathen, to have a god means to trust and believe. But their error is this: their trust is false and wrong. For their trust is not placed in the only God, beside whom there is truly no God in heaven or upon earth. Therefore the heathen really make their self-invented notions and dreams of God an idol. Ultimately they put their trust in that which is nothing. So it is with all idolatry. For it happens not merely by erecting an image and worshipping it, but rather it happens in the heart. For the heart stands gaping at something else. It seeks help and consolation from creatures, saints, or devils. It neither cares for God, nor looks to him for anything better than to believe that he is willing to help. The heart does not believe that whatever good it experiences comes from God. Besides this, there is also a false worship and extreme idolatry, which we have practiced up to now. This is also still common in the world. All churchly orders are founded on it. It concerns the conscience alone, which seeks help, consolation, and salvation in its own works. This conscience imagines it can wrestle heaven away from God, and thinks about how many requests it has made, how often it has fasted, celebrated Mass, and so on. Upon such things it depends and boasts as though unwilling to receive anything from God as a gift, for it wants to earn or merit heaven with abundant works. The conscience acts as though God must serve us and is our debtor, and we are his liege lords. What is this but reducing God to an idol, indeed an apple god, and elevating and regarding ourselves as God? But this point is a little too clever and is not for young pupils. Let the following point be made to the simple. Then they may well note and remember the meaning of this commandment. We are to trust in God alone and look to him, and expect from him nothing but good as one who gives us body, life, food, drink, nourishment, health, protection, peace, and all necessities of both temporal and eternal things. He also preserves us from misfortune, and if any evil befalls us, he delivers and rescues us. So it is God alone, as has been said well enough, from whom we receive all good and by whom we are delivered from all evil. So I think we Germans from ancient times name God, more elegantly and appropriately than any other language, from the word good. It is as though he were an eternal fountain that gushes forth abundantly nothing but what is good, and from that fountain flows forth all that is and is called good. Even though we experience much good from other people, whatever we receive by God's command or arrangement is all received from God. For our parents and all rulers and everyone else with respect to his neighbor have received from God the command that they should do us all kinds of good. So we receive these blessings not from them, but through them, from God. For creatures are only the hands, channels, and means by which God gives all things. So he gives to the mother breasts and milk to offer her child, and he gives corn and all kinds of produce from the earth for nourishment. None of these blessings could be produced by any creature of itself, so no one should expect to take or give anything except what God has commanded. Then it may be acknowledged as God's gift, and thanks may be rendered to him for it, as this commandment requires. For this reason also, the ways we receive good gifts through creatures are not to be rejected, nor should we arrogantly seek other ways and means than what God has commanded, for that would not be receiving from God, but seeking for ourselves. Let everyone then see to it that he values this commandment great and high above all things. Do not regard it as a joke. Ask and examine your heart diligently, and you will find out whether it clings to God alone or not. If you have a heart that can expect of him nothing but what is good, especially in need and distress, and a heart that also renounces and forsakes everything that is not God, then you have the only true God. If, on the contrary, your heart clings to anything else from which it expects more good and help than from God, and if your heart does not take refuge in him, but flees from him when in trouble, then you have an idol, another God. God will not have this commandment thrown into the winds. He will most strictly enforce it. In order that this may be known, he has added A, a terrible threat, and B, a beautiful, comforting promise. This promise is also to be taught and impressed upon young people, that they may take it to heart and hold it. Explanation of the appendix to the First Commandment. I, the Lord your God, am as jealous as God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. Exodus 20, verses 5 through 6. These words relate to all the commandments, as we shall learn later, but they are joined to this chief commandment because it is most important that people get their thinking straight first. For where the head is right, the whole life must be right, and vice versa. Learn therefore from these words how angry God is with those who trust in anything but him. And again, learn how good and gracious he is to those who trust and believe in him alone with their whole heart. His anger does not stop until the fourth generation of those who hate him. He says this so you will not live in such security and commit yourself to chance, like people with brute hearts who think that it makes no great difference how they live. On the other hand, his blessing and goodness reaches many thousands. He is a God who will not overlook that people turn from him. He will not stop being angry until the fourth generation, even until they are utterly exterminated. Therefore he is to be feared and not despised. He has also made this known in all history, as the scriptures abundantly show, and daily experience still teaches. For from the beginning he has utterly uprooted all idolatry. Because of idolatry he has uprooted both heathen people and Jewish people. To this day he overthrows all false worship, so that all who remain therein must finally perish. Proud, powerful, and rich men of the world, Sardanapalians and Phalaриdes, who surpass even the Persians in wealth, are still to be found. They boast defiantly of their mammon. They utterly disregard whether God is angry at them or smiles upon them. They dare to withstand his wrath, yet they shall not succeed. Before they are aware of it, they shall be wrecked, and with all in which they trusted. All others have perished like this who have thought themselves more secure or powerful. Such hard heads imagine that God overlooks and allows them to rest in security, or that he is entirely ignorant or cares about nothing in such matters. Therefore God must deal a smashing blow and punish them, so that he cannot forget their sin unto their children's children. In that way everyone may take note and see that this is no joke to him. These are the people he means when he says, those who hate me, i.e., those who persist in their defiance and pride. Whatever is preached or said to them, they will not listen. When they are rebuked, in order that they may learn to know themselves and make amends before the punishment begins, they become mad and foolish. They rightly deserve wrath, as we daily see in bishops and princes now. But as terrible as these threatenings are, so much more powerful is the consolation and the promise. For those who cling to God alone should be sure that he will show them mercy. In other words, he will show them pure goodness and blessing, not only for themselves, but also to their children and their children's children, even to the 1,000th generation and beyond that. This ought certainly to move and impel us to risk our hearts in all confidence with God, if we wish all temporal and eternal good. For the Supreme Majesty makes such outstanding offers and presents such heartfelt encouragement and such rich promises. Therefore, let everyone seriously take this passage to heart, lest it be regarded as though a man had spoken it. For you, it is a question of eternal blessings, happiness, and salvation, or of eternal wrath, misery, and woe. What more would you have or desire than God so kindly promising to be yours with every blessing and to protect and help you in all need? But unfortunately, here is the failure. The world believes none of this, nor regards it as God's word. For the world sees that those who trust in God and not in mammon suffer care and want, and that the devil opposes and resists them. They don't have money or favor or honor, and besides can scarcely support life. On the other hand, those who serve mammon have power, favor, honor, possessions, and every comfort in the eyes of the world. For this reason, these words must be understood to speak against the appearance of such things, and we must consider that they do not lie or deceive, but must come true. Reflect for yourself, or investigate and tell me. Those who have used all their care and diligence to gather great possessions and wealth, what have they finally gained? You will find that they have wasted their toil and labor. Or, even though they have amassed great treasures, they have been dispersed and scattered. So they themselves have never found happiness in their wealth, and afterward it never reached the third generation. You will find plenty of examples in all histories, also in the memory of aged and experienced people. Just watch and ponder them. Saul was a great king, chosen by God, and a godly man. But when he was established on his throne, he let his heart wander from God and put his trust in his crown and power. Then he had to perish with all he had, so that not even his children remained. David, on the other hand, was a poor, despised man, hunted down and chased, so that he did not feel his life was secure anywhere. Yet he had to survive in spite of Saul and become king. For these words of promise had to abide and come true, since God cannot lie or deceive. Just let not the devil and the world deceive you with their show, which indeed remains for a time, but finally is nothing. Let us then learn well the first commandment, that we may see how God will tolerate no overconfidence, nor any trust in any other object. We will see how he requires nothing greater from us than confidence from the heart for every good. Then we may live right and straightforward, and use all the blessings that God gives, just as a shoemaker uses a needle, awl, and thread for work, and then lays them aside. Or we may behave like a traveler using an inn, food, and bed, only to meet his present need. Each person may do this in his calling, according to God's order, and without allowing any of these things to be his lord or idol. This is enough about the first commandment, which we have had to explain at length, since it is of chief importance. For as said earlier, where the heart is rightly set toward God, and this commandment is observed, all the other commandments follow. Feel free to leave any questions or comments you have about Luther's longer explanation of the first commandment in the comments below. In the future videos that I make regarding this, I will certainly be trying to improve my reading and improve just how all of this works. So bear with me as we learn and grow together. God's blessings be with you all.